This should not be the subject of some political discourse. We're talking about real people every day in our country. Doctors and nurses have also experienced this chaos and confusion and fear.
Welcome back to America Decides. That was Vice President Kamala Harris in Charlotte, North Carolina, Saturday, marking 1 year since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. The vice president also discussed a new law set to take effect in North Carolina very soon that bans most abortions after 12 weeks. North Carolina Democratic Governor Roy Cooper joins us now. Governor, always good to see you. So the law is set to take effect July 1st. Is there any doubt in your mind that it will take effect then? I know there's a court challenge. Catch our audience up on that.
Well, there's a 12-week abortion ban that the people of North Carolina did not want that's scheduled to take effect July the 1st. This was a result of Republicans going behind closed doors, releasing a very complicated and confusing bill in the middle of the night, getting no public input, allowing no amendments, and then passing it within 40 hours, which is shorter than the 72-hour waiting period that they impose on women to wait to get an abortion. Of course, I vetoed that bill. They overrode it by one vote in each chamber, with every single Republican voting to override and every single Democrat voting against override. And this shows us that Republicans are united in their assault on women's reproductive freedom. This bill was so confusing that it has resulted in a court case. There is a hearing on Wednesday morning that we will see what happens. I know that Republicans are concerned about it because they've already started running legislation in the General Assembly that could correct some of the confusing parts of this legislation. Many doctors, because they didn't get expert opinions into the process of drawing this law, many doctors are confused as to what this law means. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday. One thing I know is that we're going to keep working to provide as much access to women as we possibly can. And we know that the 2024 elections, where every single legislative seat will be up, will be critical because Republican leadership has said, we are coming back. This 12-week ban is not enough. We want to do more. And of course, half the states in the country have imposed some type of abortion restriction on women that did not exist before the Dobbs decision in this terrible 365 days since that opinion went into effect.
Governor, I want to ask you about something that happened in the Supreme Court today. Supreme Court let a lower court decision prevail in a redistricting case in Louisiana. If you add that to what you saw in Alabama earlier from the Supreme Court, there is some indication that this court is looking at the idea of partisan gerrymanders and coming down squarely on the side that some of them can violate the Voting Rights Act. Does that give you any confidence, Governor Cooper, about the North Carolina case pending before the Supreme Court as well?
Well, I haven't had a chance to review this case today, but I know that the Alabama case that occurred a few weeks ago is breathing some life in the Voting Rights Act. And there was concern that this U.S. Supreme Court would completely turn a blind eye to it. But I think this is positive. North Carolina has been ground zero for partisan gerrymandering, and we could use a little help from the United States Supreme Court. In fact, we're still waiting to hear from the case of Moore v. Harper, where our Republican leadership has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to make them the sole arbiters of what happens in federal elections in North Carolina. What a horrible idea. I hope the U.S. Supreme Court will turn that down.
Speaking of the Supreme Court, Governor Cooper, there is a case that will be decided in all likelihood this week on the future of affirmative action as it relates to admissions at places like University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You're a graduate, both undergraduate and law school graduate. Your thoughts on that case and its implications if, as many court watchers expect, affirmative action in those admissions procedures is outlawed?
Well, you know, this is taking race into account when considering admissions, is what both University of North Carolina and Harvard, the other defendant in this case, are doing. And it's because they're not talking about quotas or even affirmative action. What they're talking about is a diverse student body, which they consider to be an important part of an excellent academic education. And I hope that the Supreme Court will not do damage to that. The oral arguments that we heard maybe forecast that they will rule against the universities here. But I was one of a number of present and former governors who filed an amicus brief in this case saying, you know, our universities are training grounds for the future leadership of our state and our businesses. And being part of a diverse campus is important to having a quality education. It makes a person more well-rounded. And this, having race is just one of the many factors that these universities consider in admissions is something that should be allowed.
And just to be clear, Governor, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill doesn't ask, but it will allow applicants to convey that information if they wish, correct?
Convey, I'm sorry, Major.
It's information about their race. There's not like a, there's
sure.
not some.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And, you know, this is an important part of looking at a campus and a student body holistically. There are many factors that should go into that, and race is one of them.
Governor Roy Cooper, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.